I have seen Kraven the Hunter. How is Sony allowed to still make movies? What the fuck?
It's podcasting time. Aloha. Welcome to TheSalawag's Final Cut. Yes, that is a weird looking Power Ranger move. My name is Matthew Salanoa. I'm the director of the award-winning 007 I Only Need One, and I'm a filmmaker for over 17 plus years, and I'm here to talk about movies that, it's a bit of a review show, but also at the end I go into ultimate armchair mode and talk about how I could make the movie better. Now there's a catch. I can't just say I want 17 minutes of action or a love story, any of that stuff. I have rules. Either the movie has to be improved by editing, or it has to have no more than 2 days of shooting. I must make the movie better by my suggestions in only that exact way. So we'll get there when we get there. But first, let's review Kraven. I'm gonna get into spoilers so fast on this movie. So I did do a gut reaction. I have another podcast called TheSalawag's Why It's Great Gut Reaction, where I very much loved the trailer to Kraven. And if the movie had been like the trailer, which is a horrible thing to have to say, I know it would have been a much better movie, but it was not like the trailer. So spoiler free for those who don't know, Kraven is the latest in the Sony-led Marvel universe of movies. It's not MCU. It's just Sony making Marvel movies from the Spider-Man comics that don't have Spider-Man in them. This is a farce. It is the biggest joke of all time. They were leading the superhero cinema with Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 1 and 2. But you could tell with Spider-Man 3 that the money had really gone to the heads of the studios and that they were not interested in quality storytelling anymore. There was too much involvement of the studio with Spider-Man 3 where they forced Venom into the movie. Sam Raimi, not even a fan of Venom, had to put him in his movie. And if the filmmaker is no longer the one telling the story, then you cannot have a well-told story. And Spider-Man 3 was, to me, atrocious at the time, even though I still consider it heads above the Amazing Spider-Man films. At least one head. It's a head that probably needs to roll. But anyway, it was so clear from Spider-Man 3 that whatever Sony was going to make with superhero movies was only going to get worse. Ghost Rider was bad. Ghost Rider 2, I don't think was even made by Sony anymore. But yeah, it was just... And then we get the Amazing Spider-Mans, which came so soon after Spider-Man 3 to reboot it, to start with him in high school again, I thought was ridiculous. And the fact that it's just like, you cannot just retell the same thing and act like no one's supposed to notice, but people still enjoy that movie, so whatever. But then we get into the Sinister Six build-up, where we're telling the origins of characters who literally Spider-Man is involved with their origins. Venom begins because of Spider-Man. The black suit is the black symbiote suit gets on Spider-Man. He rejects that suit, and it gets onto Eddie Brock. And Eddie Brock, who has already lost his job and lost to Peter Parker and Spider-Man multiple different ways, but only because Eddie Brock himself is a bit of a crook, but doesn't take responsibility for that. The shared anger of the symbiote hating Spider-Man for that rejection, but also Eddie Brock, sick of being rejected in life, because Peter Parker slash Spider-Man were just better than him for this reason or that. That combination of anger is what makes Venom Venom. You know, he's not Venom without being personally upset at Spider-Man for those reasons. And so to have a Venom movie that's not in New York, that has nothing to do with Spider-Man, is a hollow movie. I've still, to this day, not finished the first Venom. I cannot get past the first 20 minutes. It is a wall of shit to me. And I'm sorry to say it, but it is. I just cannot. It's so bad. It's so bad. It's all the worst parts of Amazing Spider-Man turned to the nth degree. I've never finished that movie. I'm never going to. And then you get Venom 2, which actually I did enjoy. I thought Carnage was pretty cool. The actress who plays Carnage's girlfriend, I love her. I thought everything in the finale was pretty sick with that movie. But all things being said, it was still a hollow movie. It still wasn't telling the story first, if there was one. And that's the problem. These movies don't have a story. Venom requires Spider-Man, at least as a basis, to start his story. And then he goes through the trials and tribulations of trying to be a villain and failing at that as well before we get, you know, Eddie Brock, soldier at war with the Venom suit. That's a different story that I haven't read or seen, but I know exists. But that, to me, if you have a couple great Spider-Man movies using the Venom character and introducing Carnage, you can get yourself to a nice trilogy of Venom movies that are about Eddie Brock changing his life and becoming a soldier and using the Venom outfit for that. I mean, there's something there if you have the cojones and the smarts to think of a story ahead of time before just jumping into 600 movies with no plan. And that's always been Sony's problem, is that they just keep... The only thing they're interested is maintaining the IP. They're not interested in telling good stories. And that is why I, with the exception of Venom 3, Venom 2, which Venom 2 I didn't pay for, but I was going with my family. But with the exception of Venom 3 and Kraven, which I went to deliberately, just because the trailers looked good, with the exception of that, I have not supported Sony since Spider-Man 3. I didn't go see The Amazing Spider-Mans. I didn't see Morbius. I didn't see I still haven't watched Madam Web. The Sony Marvel is, with the exception of the Spider-Verse movies, Sony Marvel is just a horrendous embarrassment because, again, they want the IP, but they're not taking the time to put out good screenplays, get really good director talent, and good writers. They're not taking the time to do any of those things because legally, if they don't produce so much content or so much film material, they'll lose the rights. And to that I say, just fucking give it up. Please, for the love of God, give it up already. You know, I mean, finish the Spider-Verse movies and then give it to Marvel, because after Kraven, I'm like, again, Morbius requires Spider-Man. Spider-Man's blood is mixed with the bat blood. That's what turns Morbius into Morbius. At least that's what the 90s cartoon told me. So again, a villain who requires Spider-Man as part of his origin is not there. You know what I mean? I just don't understand, you know, what is wrong with Sony other than this craving for maintaining the IP. I'm like, good God, guys. I didn't like the Ghostbusters remake. I thought Afterlife was okay. Frozen Empire, I had a recording and it wasn't necessary to talk about it. You know what I mean? But these movies are hollow, and they're clearly led by something other than storytelling being the most important thing. And Kraven, the only reason I'm talking about it is because I was thoroughly impressed with the first 10 to 15 minutes of this movie. The first 10 to 15 minutes of Kraven shows where Kraven is. He goes to prison on purpose in order to kill a gangster, and then he breaks out of prison. And then we get this little flashback story that shows him as a teenager with his younger brother, and you see the toughness of their father, played by Russell Crowe, who actually has the proper Kraven voice. And, I think I was so impressed with the beginning of this movie trying to tell that story. It was consistent with the trailers. The action was great. But the whole first 10, 15 minutes of this movie felt like it was written and directed by a completely different person than the one who made the rest of the movie. It felt like the rest of the movie, was made by a committee who had script notes, and they didn't really, write the movie. It didn't even feel written. It just felt like, oh, we need to connect these dots. We need to connect these dots and move the scene. It was like an episode of Power Rangers where the things move by so fast. Why are we volunteering? Because volunteering is good. And also because this person likes this person. Oh, and also, there's a monster. It's like, geez, I got whiplash watching this. This is ridiculous. You just ran through a bunch of information with no tact or character or anything. It was just bullet through, faster but less intense. What the hell? Yeah, Kraven was a painful watch. Oh, it was the most painful since the first Venom, except that I decided to sit through it because the opening was so good. If you haven't seen Kraven, I do not recommend it. I really think it's, with the exception of the first 10 minutes, I think it's a real waste of film or video, whatever they shot on. Aaron Taylor Johnson, though, I think does an excellent job. I mean, just talk about a pro. Actually, I think the cast overall does a really good job. So maybe the director, J.C. Chandor, he wasn't intentionally wasting our time, I thought the performances were good. Morbius, I was like, this movie is so all over the place. I don't know if there was a director. It might have just been a producer saying, hey, there's a camera on, do things. You know what I mean? Whereas we got a script, we don't got a director. There's a camera on, do things. Do things, the camera's on. That was the experience of Morbius. But this movie was like, it's just painful to watch. But again, like I said, the cast was good. They did their best. God, did they do their best. Even the CGI stunt double did his best, and he was computer animated to begin with. This movie was so awful. But I will say there was potential within the movie. There was a genuine, if they had taken the time, and maybe they did, I don't know, if they had taken their time a bit more. And I think this is the real issue with all the Sony movies. They're all rushed. They're all very clearly rushed to make the deadline, the legal deadline of maintaining the IP of Spider-Man. Which is like, you know what? You just don't deserve to be making these movies. You just don't deserve it. You've had 20 years and you've only made 2 good movies. Some people would say you made 4 good movies. As far as I'm concerned, you've only made 2 good movies, and that was when you let the storyteller do their job. Now we've got this horrendous 20 years of just worse movie after worse movie after worse movie. I mean, if there was no Spider-Verse, if I see Sony, I just know that it's not worth going to see your movie. And I hate saying that. I really hate saying that. You know what I mean? Because at one point, when Spider-Man 2 came out, I was like, good God. You guys are the only ones making a comic book movie. You know what I mean? Like, Spider-Man 2 was so good. It was so wonderful. I wanted to make superhero movies because of Spider-Man 2. Where I was just like, I mean, I always loved superheroes, but I didn't even think making a superhero movie was possible. because all we had was the 90s movies, and really the best superhero movie was Mask of Zorro. And he's not even based on actually, no, he is based off of a comic book. Another time period. But really, I hate saying this because Spider-Man 2 and 1, Spider-Man 1 and 2 were such a magical experience. They still, I mean, the Dark Knight trilogy obviously takes it up a notch, but Spider-Man 1 and 2 set the precedent. Dark Knight trilogy has no feet without Spider-Man 1 and 2 laying down the foundation of what a superhero movie should be capable of achieving, which is really strong storytelling. A really great focus on making sure the technology both supports that story, but also gives us an adventure worth following. And those movies, again, yeah, no Spider-Man 1, no Spider-Man 2. I would never think it's possible to make a genuine comic book movie that both respects the audience, but also gives general audiences an adventure so good they gotta come back and see the next one. So to watch these movies get so bad that the concern for quality is so far out the window, I just cannot look at Sony and take them seriously as a company that wants to make good movies. Even with Ghostbusters, I'm like, good God, guys, you've only proven that you can get on your knees for some really safely tested, focus groups. And it's like, here's the problem with a focus group. It's not speaking to everybody. It's a focused group. You're not a storyteller. Is here to tell a story. And if you're lucky, it reaches everybody. But a storyteller should be able to go in and give you a pitch there where you're getting a good movie out of it. And that's what Sam Raimi did. That's what Christopher Nolan did. And that's got to be how these things are done from here on out. Otherwise, it's just not worth it. You know what I mean? I don't care that you're going to reboot this all. I do not want to come back to the theater. I came back because the trailers were good. But both times, the movie was terrible. At least Venom 3 was fun, but it was still bad. But Kraven was just so unexcusably bad. I was just like, guys, just give it to Marvel. You're Sony. You have video games. Make those into movies. Just give Spider-Man back to Marvel. Because you've just totally wasted everyone's time. You've wasted everyone's time for almost 20 years on really terrible films. And it's just not worth it to sit through any more of your stuff. I'll watch Beyond the Spider-Verse, and then I'm done. If it says Sony on it, Sony Ghostbusters, no. But yeah, Kraven, it was just a great opening 10 minutes that made me think, you guys care. You guys do care. And then it took such a harsh nosedive. Literally, there's a shot where the flashback story ends, and you see teenage Kraven's reflection in the eye of a dead animal. My friend starts laughing. And I'm not thinking this is comical yet. I'm still into it. I'm like, you know what? This is a cheesy shot, But the storytelling till this point has been at least on point. They're not hitting us over the head too much. They're just trying to tell the story of how Kraven got here. I'm down with it. But as soon as that shot happens and the flashback story's over, like the writing, the dialogue. There's a scene where Kraven befriends a lawyer who saved him as a kid, part of the flashback story. And they shove so much into that scene. I can't even get into it without spoiling the movie. Spoilers now. And we're not celebrating any goods. beginning is the goods. So in the beginning, in the flashback, we get Calypso as a kid talking to her grandmother, and there's the introduction of the tarot cards. I thought that scene was fine. Not the best written, but well enough. Well enough. It's getting the point across. And it's not forcing too much information. It's just giving us just enough that we know this information's important, and it's going to come back soon. But then when Kraven meets up with her at the funeral, and they shove so much into this scene, where it's like, it's you. Yes, we met as children. Like he goes back and forth with his accent. Sometimes he has a bit of an accent. Sometimes he has no accent. He's a fully American accent. It's worse than Halle Berry in the X-Men movies, man. Where he can't decide if he's Siberian or not. Yeah, am I Siberian in this scene, or am I American? You know, I'm like, yeah, dude. I wish he had just had the accent. I know it was ridiculous in Age of Ultron, but I wish he just had the accent. It was just like his American voice didn't do it for me. I really felt like I was watching Kick-Ass pretend to be Kraven as opposed to Kraven. In the opening scene, when he's killing those prison people, that's Kraven. I'm like, that is unquestionably Kraven. Aaron Taylor Johnson gives a shit. Everyone gives a shit. That's fucking Kraven. That's awesome. Oh, but as soon as we get into him meeting up with the lawyer chick who was the kid who gave him the magical serum as a kid. Oh, I still have those tarot cards. I'm like, no, stop it. There should be two separate scenes. Like there's so much was forced into that scene. They have no chemistry. They have no energy between each other. It's just dialogue for the sake of dialogue. Just talking about this movie stresses me out to the point of being exhausted. Yeah. But then we have the Rhino character played by Alessandro Nivola, who was a really great actor, but he's doing this kind of weird over-the-top thing where he has these very bizarre reactions to things. And the first two scenes where he turns into the Rhino, he slowly turns into the Rhino, and it just starts to turn his chest hard. And it's just to deflect bullets for that one scene. I'm like, you mean to tell me we're not going to get Rhino in this movie except for the trailer scene that we see him in? And even the scenes where he turns into the Rhino, you feel that another scene was shot. And all of a sudden we're in these awkward close-ups where they're not trying to show exactly where we are, but it's supposed to feel like the same place. And this visual effect starts, and it just feels like, was this whole Rhino thing an afterthought? Did you guys come up with this later? You know, was this guy just kind of an unhinged weirdo, and you just decided to reshoot him as the Rhino because, oh no, it's so bad. Fuck, it's bad. But literally, this movie, you can tell it's low budget because the majority of this movie are exactly scenes between just two people. Unless there's stunts. If there's stunts, there's multiple people. But every single scene is just scenes between exactly two people. No background extras. Nothing exciting about the location. Just two people talking and getting the information across as fast as possible. You know, oh my God. You know, I just cannot. You know, I cannot. This movie, just painful to watch, makes less sense as they go along. Kraven is awful. Of course, first world problems. I went to see this movie, but seriously, and the fact that the Rhino doesn't appear till the end of the movie, I'm like, well, why did you have him then? Why did you do this? It really feels like the movie was atrocious and they needed something to make people go see it. And they went back and reshot all these rhino parts to make the action movie more exciting. You know, and to give something for people to go see it. I really feel like all the prison stuff feels like new footage, and all the rhino stuff feels like new footage. And the flashback stuff seems like it existed already, because it was in the very first teaser trailer for Kraven. Even the shot where he gets the jacket from his dad, I'm like, even that looks like new footage. I mean, why are we in this random room? I thought the whole point of Kraven's outfit was that it was made out of the animals that he killed, not that something his dad gave to him. Oh, just come on. I mean, and then you got the foreigner whose power is saying one, and then moving out of the way, and people are temporarily hypnotized just so that he can stand behind them and shoot them. Ah! It's like, I would have rather you did anything except that, because it was so obnoxious and stupid. He could have just had fast hands and disarmed people, Jason Bourne style. I really don't care. But, you know, this guy's power is just the dissolve effect in editing. One. You know what I mean? Like, what? What? One. Ah! And the buildup of the brother to be chameleon was so on the nose. Oh, it's your brother. He is a chameleon. And what way is he a chameleon with just the sound of his voice? That's not, I mean, voice mimic something, I don't know, but just the sound of his voice makes him a chameleon. I don't know. That's undercooked and just one. God, this movie's terrible. The chameleon buildup, but ironically, the final scene where he reveals himself to be the chameleon, I thought was actually not a bad scene. Again, it didn't feel overwritten, didn't feel forced. There was genuine tension there. It was just like weird that the beginning and end of this movie were smooth, but just literally everything in between. So poorly written, so poorly directed, so poorly edited. I mean, I don't know who is making the decisions, but God, it's just clear. Sony cannot be trusted. Just give Spider-Man back and invest into your video games and turn those into movies. Because guess what? Superhero fatigue is real. Superheroes will always be around, but it's going to get tired as a mainstay. Video games are clearly on the upswing. Give Spider-Man to Marvel and make your video games into good movies, because at least that IP you already own. You can take your time and make it good. Do that, because you just have lost the privilege to me of having anything to do with anyone wearing spandex. I don't want to see it. I see Sony. I know. Stay away. You know, leave Ghostbusters alone too, because that's just you. I'm glad the focus groups liked it, but it's still an incoherent movie. Oof. But anyway, that being said, I do feel this movie could have been enormously improved in such a way that I don't think would require much in the way of editing or shooting. So, with that being said, after much suffering, let's enter ultimate armchair mode, where I talk about how I would make this movie better. All right, it's ultimate armchair mode. I am ready to tell you how I will make this movie better. Okay. Remember the caveat. I don't get to say I get to insert 15 minutes of any type of storytelling. I have rules, okay? And here's how it should go. In my mind, how this would work is the studio comes to me with the movie in its finished form as we all know it to be. And let's say, we have a few weeks or we have a little bit of time to make this movie better. Say, hey, Matt, you seem to have that Spielberg kind of mind. What would you do with this movie? We realize it's got some work to do. How would you make this better and more palatable for the audience? I'm like, oh, God. Oh, what work have you done for me? Oh. Okay. This movie needs serious time in the editing room. A structure needs to be found. But not only that, a story needs to be told. Because the story is essentially abandoned after the flashback. After that point, we just have plot points pushing characters around, and it's not very strong from a storytelling point of view. But just from the editing, it's very weird that Kraven comes back from prison having killed his target and immediately tries to strike a friendship with the girl he met as a kid, and at the same time is trying to hire her to help him find people to kill, and at the same time is trying to impress her with the fact that he killed the man that killed her friend. Now, I did show up late to this movie because I walked into the wrong theater and didn't realize it until it was too late. So I may have missed something important in the beginning before the whole prison sequence. But that being said, where I would start is when he comes back. Let's go right back to the family immediately. It's his brother's birthday. Okay. The next day, have the funeral and have the friend give a speech. That speech needs to be rewritten, totally rewritten to Jesus. Wow, it needs to be rewritten. But let's create a little story. What I would spend 2 days shooting is beefing up the relationship with the lawyer who he knew as a kid. That needs to be an actual relationship with conflict. I think really what should have happened is she needs to be working on a case to put away the guy who Kraven killed at the beginning of the movie. He should still have friends with power who are out there, and they're gonna try to kill the lawyer, thinking that either she had something to do with that guy's death, or at the very least, they're trying to kill her case, and the best way to do it is to kill her. So Kraven should come back, meet his brother for his birthday, the next day go meet the girl, and Kraven's kind of feeling good about himself. Have a little period of things being okay. Have Kraven introduce himself, and then let's break this up into some new scenes where they go sit down, they talk to each other a bit. Fucking people try to kill her. You know what I mean? We already have tons and tons of footage of bad guys from various angles doing shooting stuff. So I'm sure we don't even need to shoot any of that. We just get one of those guns that shoots sparks. Where you shoot it and whatever it hits sparks. Get a couple stuntmen with some of those guns. Get a couple glass plates and stuff, things that are easy to break. Plates, cups. Let's spend 2 days fleshing out their storyline and having her storyline connected to the Alessandro Nivola, where everyone's really working for him, and this guy not only is encroaching on her life, he is taking up the Kraven business, the Kravenoff business. So I would do much more in the way of sort of combining both sides of the story, where when Kraven starts being more heroic, it's to save her, build up that relationship, and maybe he brings her in much sooner, rather than bringing her straight to his Tarzan home in the third act of the movie, just so she can have an arrow to shoot when he needs it. So I'd really flesh out their story, give Kraven a little period of rest in the front of the movie, where he's just trying to get to know this girl, or maybe he sees her first, and then goes to see his brother and all that stuff. Have a few scenes where the assassins try to attack her, make this court case more important, do the 16 blocks. Do 16 blocks where she has to make it to court to put this guy in jail at a certain time, but at the same time, he's trying to stay out of jail because it's the Rhino, and he's at the same time trying to take over the Kravenoff Empire. So really, let's shoot scenes with her and with Alessandro Nivola that build up this conflict and why the action is happening. Foreigner, I don't even know, dude. I don't even know. I might cut all that out. That Foreigner stuff made no sense. It really felt shoved in there. And if you want to do the Chameleon, I don't know the comic history on Chameleon. I thought he was a Russian defector or something who already had this technology to look like whoever he wanted. But if you want Chameleon to be Kraven's brother, then he needs to show signs of that earlier in the movie. So whether it's during the hunting, maybe he wears clothes that blends in with the environment and saves Kraven or something like that, or maybe throughout the movie, during the whole sequence when he's being arrested, or not arrested, but when he's being taken by the mercenaries who work for the Rhino, maybe he does manage to take one guy down, and then he puts his suit on, and then uses the walkie, and then does the voice thing. But because he's still got his own face, just comedically stumbles into another merc and gets knocked out, and then continue the plot as it goes. But I just really feel like so much needs to be built in for Chameleon and Calypso for their part in the movie to really matter. And I don't really get at all why or how any of these things happen. I might even need a third day on this shit, but really I think it can be done in 2 days. We get 1 day where we're shooting with Calypso, day to night, we'll just try to bang out some scenes, improv, do it however we gotta do it. But we will get through scenes that build up the character and relationship of Kraven and Calypso. We get some time for them to have actual chemistry, get some time for them to build up their relationship, and get him to bring her into the story fold sooner, by being her protector, like I said, 16 blocks style. But at the same time, the Rhino is going after the Kravenoff family, and that's actually what this is all mixed up with. So the second day would be shooting, one or two scenes with the brother to set up his more chameleon-like aspects, like changing his clothes or doing something more adaptive, just at least showing the thought process of him, where he's starting to adapt to his environment to escape and try and get away from the Rhino. And then most importantly is build up Alessandro Nivola's Rhino character much better. Or that could be the same scene where, Chameleon brother knocks out a guy, puts on a suit, and uses the voice to sort of get by a couple guys, but he ends up running into the fully grown rhino. And then we cut. We don't even need to see anything else. But we need to see Rhino at least one more time in full form before the finale, because it's just so empty without it. I would go further to say we need a first conflict with Rhino and Kraven. You know, full grown Rhino. Rhino needs to kick Kraven's ass. Because Kraven, he's just too good. You know what I mean? He's just too good that he doesn't have anywhere to go. And one of the most egregious scenes in the movie is at his Tarzan house, and he's telling Calypso what a good hunter is. He can track anyone, anywhere, anything, anywhere. But it's like, if you're that good of a hunter, why do you need her to help you find people? That doesn't make any sense. Like, the ego does not match the plot or the story. It really is not adding up here, dude. And editing wise, I would just cut out every single line of dialogue that is not needed, because so much of this movie has so much forced, redundant dialogue of information that's already given in previous scenes that's reiterated in other scenes. Again, it feels reshoots, it feels afterthought. You could just tell these people thought the audience is dumb. The audience can't follow this. They are dumb. And that kind of thinking makes it an extremely dumb movie to watch. I mean, even the Venom filmmakers had more respect for the audience than that. Good God. But there's so many dialogue scenes that are just repeating information or introducing information that's confusing, or just, why does the foreigner appear here? Why does he appear here? What does he want? What is going on? I don't understand. The foreigner's entire section of this movie, I would just cut out or repurpose. You know what I mean? Good God, it's just wasted footage. I don't know what's up with this movie. And it's just so dumb. Like, give me something else other than 1, 2, 3, bam, I'm behind you. Like, couldn't you just have quick hands? I don't care. I just don't care. But yeah, so what I would do is absolutely spend a whole day shooting with Aaron Taylor Johnson and the actress who plays Calypso. I don't care if we have to improv the scenes. We are going to shoot a bunch of scenes that give them a story. And it might just be 2 or 3 scenes, but gives them a story. And we're going to work this out beforehand as well, of how the story interconnects with the rhino. And we're going to give a simple plot. She just has to make it to court. That's it. She just has to make it to court. She just needs to survive from the beginning of the movie to the end of the movie. Kraven just needs to put her in a safe house or something so that she can make it to the end of the movie. We don't need to make it too complicated. But I don't know. I don't even care about the ending at the Tarzan house. I don't care. We got to get there some other kind of way. Unless that's the safe house, you know what I mean? But the way this story happens, it's just not flowing at all. Or he gets to her to a safe place so that he can then later get her to that safe place. And then the second day of shooting is entirely about the side characters and the villain. We need one more rhino scene, so I don't care. Let's get Ethan Suplee. He already looks like the rhino or like the Venom. Fantastic actor from the 90s. He was always wonderful when he's known for being the bigger guy. And now he's the big muscly guy, and he looks fantastic. What a transformation. Ethan Suplee, dude. He's got a podcast called American Glutton where he talks about his process and talks to other people who, I guess, have been through something similar. But literally, let's just hire him, paint him gray, backlight him, put a horn on his head, and what we're going to do is we're going to shoot a scene where Chameleon Little Brother, breaks out of the hands of whoever's watching him that's working for Rhino, and takes the suit, gets past some guys using his voice skill, and maybe he just messes with his hair a bit to resemble the guy he knocked out. Let's shoot some stuff that shows him as a chameleon without the face part. You know what I mean? He's already doing it in a way, but he's doing it because he wants to survive, not because this is always what he's done. It's the necessity of survival and escape. He's certain he's going to die, so he needs to escape. But he does all this. He gets past a couple guards using his chameleon technique, not the face changing, but just wearing different clothes, using his voice. Really utilize his creativity. And then after almost getting out, fucking runs into the rhino. And all we need to see is that silhouette of the muscular rhino looking down, imposing upon him, and we cut. And then we can go to the scene where Rhino is trying to recruit the chameleon. The movie can exist in its form, but it absolutely needs story threads, and it needs heavy editing to really get rid of the redundant lines, but it needs good, proper storytelling for the Aaron Taylor Johnson Calypso aspect, and just a little bit more build up for Chameleon, and just one scene with Rhino, just one. And I totally feel like Ethan Suplee, with his build, and maybe just a little gray paint and maybe some kind of lumpy stuff to put on him, we just need to achieve the silhouette of the Rhino. We don't actually need the full CGI Rhino at all. We just get his silhouette. We just need to see him one more time. And if we really had the money, if I had a week, I would add a Rhino action sequence in the urban setting that just where we just kick Kraven's ass. Kraven needs to have his ass handed to him to be humbled, and it needs to force him to be stronger. Really tell a story with his character. And by having Kraven's ass be kicked, that's what motivates the chameleon to develop his chameleon skill. The story needs to be moving, but there is no story here. It's just a bunch of plot spaghetti, and some character inferences, but not really a story. We need Kraven to, by the end of the movie, be the most ruthless, fierce person alive. And we can only show that by having some kind of scene. Like I said, this is extra. If I had a whole week, I want an extra action scene. But if I couldn't get an extra action scene, we gotta at least see Rhino one more time being imposing. Because it's just a disappointing finale when we have all this build-up to the fight between Rhino and Kraven, and the fight lasts 5 seconds. It's over so fast, it's not even worth it watching. I really left this movie hugely disappointed, but not feeling like it couldn't be saved. I absolutely felt it could be saved. It just needed, truth be told, it needed a week of reshoots, unless they had already reshot a bunch. But on top of that, the most important aspects of the reshoots needed to be the character relationship build-up. So that why is Calypso here other than exactly the scene of, I need some random guy who I don't know who I'm talking to give me information on someone. When Calypso does the phone call to her guy to find someone, even on her face, she looks like, who am I talking to? Like you don't have another take where she doesn't look confused? So this movie was a really egregious, painful watch for me, except, like I said, the beginning, which starts off in the prison and gives us the wonderful escape sequence. And also, I really liked the flashback in the beginning. But other than those two things, I really felt this movie needed a lot of work. It needs a lot of time in the editing room, and it needs just it does need at least 10 minutes of more story while cutting out redundancies in the rest of the movie. but just 10 more minutes of genuine storytelling, introducing relationships, growing them naturally. You got an animal hunter, but there's never any animal instincts or animal heat. You know what I mean? I mean, he's the greatest hunter of them all, and yet there's no passion or heat between him and Calypso. It's literally the coldest relationship ever. You know they're supposed to hook up. And then again, you're forcing the chameleon to be at the end of this movie, which I did think was a good scene, actually. I thought that was actually a nice finale scene. I was okay with the last two scenes of this movie, but it's the whole middle and the rhino being edit out his weird, crazy stuff. Cut that out. There's literally a scene where they show up and where the one guy, because this movie, unless there's stunts, it only features two people talking to each other ever, showing us how little money this movie actually had. Where the one guy who works for the rhino goes up to the rhino, and the rhino's like holding onto the table. I guess he's in pain from his medical condition, and says, "Kraven got away." And we just see Alessandro Nivola go, and it's like, why are you making this noise? Why are you making a weird dolphin cat hiss? Why is the sound being made? Why? Cut that shit out. I would rather him be boring and generic than be fucking a 90s camp villain again. I'm so tired of it. I just like all of these movies have the exact identical problems. A cheesy, out of date villain who's from a bad 90s superhero movie, and just absolutely no character development for the hero. It's like, good God, Sony, okay, you gotta fire somebody and hire somebody else. That's all I know. You just keep making the same mistakes over and over and over again. There's no learning curve with any of these movies. They just get worse. And yeah, get out of here. So, if storytelling's not your first priority in an art form business that requires storytelling, then you've got to ask yourself what you're doing in this business. Because like I said, I don't even understand the obsession with the Spider-Man IP. Give Spider-Man back to Marvel in full, okay? Give him back to Marvel in full, and put your effort into making video game movies be faithful to the video games, with good budgets and good scripts, with IP that you actually control. It doesn't make any sense at all that you're so obsessed with this superhero that's not going to have any value once they remake the character 2 more times. It's going to be done. No one's going to watch, you can only remake Spider-Man so many times. It will lose its value. We will have to have other superheroes take over at some point. So get off the train that left you 20 years ago, or that you left 20 years ago, and build your own track. You have existing IP that's hugely popular with the gaming industry, gets tons of great gameplay views on YouTube. You have an entire industry of product, service, money, bank loads of cash that you could be making, but you're wasting all your time trying to fuck over Marvel. You know what I mean? You're just wasting your time with some kind of grudge match that you lost back in 2007. So I really hope that Sony wises up, and and like I said, these are just my ideas for how I would tell the story. Like I said, I am a director and a filmmaker of over 17 years. If you put me in charge of fixing this movie, I would put the story back into the movie. Really try to make it a more exhilarating, interesting movie, and cut out all the redundant crap that doesn't make it worth watching. I want a story, I want action, but I also want it all to make sense and make me feel like I'm going somewhere. And that would be my focus, because as an editor, I've had tons of projects where people came to me and like, I don't know what can be done with this footage. And I turn that footage and show them, hey, this can be done. Anything can be done. We can make great stuff out of not great stuff, as long as we are always thinking about, well, what's the story about? What are we trying to tell? that's always got to come first, because you come at it with that attitude, you really can't lose. Or like Joker 2, you can lose a lot of money, but you know what I mean. That's what you get when you make a movie about a crazy person. Okay, it's not based off the comics. It's just a movie about a crazy person who called himself Joker. So it's a gamble. But again, storytelling, action. I love action movies. I want good action movies, and even good action movies, they have to have a good storytelling to drive the action and make that action make your heart pound, because you have to want that character to win or lose at the end. So anyway, that's my thoughts on Kraven the Hunter. Even the title, oh my God, even the title made me upset. I'm like, you have this amazing poster with this wonderful graphic, Kraven the Hunter. And in the title is this terrible font, placeholder font, that has like the subtle, zoom out of the letters. I'm like, this is ugly. Put the fucking trailer graphic here. What are you? You really do not care. You do not care. So anyway, that's my thoughts on Kraven. And like I said, I don't like being angry at Sony, because Spider-Man 2 made me want to make superhero movies. It made me believe making superhero movies the right way was absolutely achievable. And I still believe Spider-Man 2 goes easily head to head with Dark Knight in terms of fantastic movie based on comic book material, that although it altered things, it kept the right parts consistent and understood where the character is supposed to be coming from. I don't want to hate Sony. I absolutely believe anyone can win if they actually want to. And I just don't think Sony wants to win with Spider-Man. I think they're just afraid of losing money. And truth be told, as much money as you've made, you've also thrown so much into the can. And I would say you got to reorient your film goals to match the IP you currently own. And you got to let Spider-Man go, because your heart's not in it. If your heart was in it, it would be there. And your heart's not in Spider-Man. So I am looking forward to Spider-Man Noir. But again, dude, everything you do with great apprehension, man. With great apprehension, because it's too many bad movies. Way too many bad movies. I can't take you seriously. But I want to so badly. Otherwise, I wouldn't create a show where I wish I could make movies better. And I absolutely felt Kraven could be better. I didn't try to improve Venom, right? You were off the rails from the first one. But Kraven, I thought, you can just see there was a decent movie in there. And it just needed to be brought out. But that's my thoughts. I hope you like this. It's kind of a weird show. I'm still finding my footing with it, to be fair. It's just, I don't know, I felt like making this podcast and trying to be practical about what I would change about a movie. I think there's a lot of reviews where people have a lot of huge wish lists for how a movie should be changed, and ultimately it's like it should have been a completely different movie. But I'm like, if you want a completely different movie, then we're not talking about the movie that we saw, right? So that's why I wanted to make a podcast. It's about the movie we all watched. How can we make that movie better? How can we be practical about it and not waste too much time, and not say, let's start from the beginning, although I intend to go there too. But how can we really be practical as a filmmaker of 17 years who's done this for so long? What would I do to make it practically better and not fantasy better? How could you actually make it better with the resources we have now, and not the imaginary storylines we wish were there, but with what exists in the movie, making it better as is. That's what I have to say. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching. And Sony, I don't mean offense, but man, something's got to be done, man. I'm told I will see Spider-Man Noir. I will check that out, but you guys, I want to see you guys care. That's all. I want to see you guys care. But also, I believe it's time for you to shift gears and let go of Spider-Man. I really feel like this should be the end. If it's not Beyond the Spider-Verse, this should be the end of your live action stuff, because it's just clear your heart's not in the right place, and we need stuff to be told from the right place. Otherwise, you are just, what are you doing? Why are you even doing this? You're doing things out of fear when you should be doing things out of fearlessness. Anyway, that's my thoughts, and still hats off to the cast and crew for doing everything you could. I'm sorry it wasn't for me, but hey, there, like I said, I wouldn't have even come this far if I didn't think there was something there worth biting into, worth talking about for the movie. So that does say that you guys were putting your hearts out there. It didn't come out so great from my perspective. So thank you very much for watching. Aloha, and see you on the next one, hopefully.